This is Sarah, block editor. I'm here with Flower83, one of your Neo Tokyo council members and a core member of the news team. This series of interviews is designed to introduce citizens to their council and notable members of the community. So first of all, welcome, Flower. How are you?
Hello. Quite well.
All right. So we need to start off way back in the beginning. Give us your pre-crypto background. Who were you before you dove into Web3?
Yeah, so I actually entered the space, you could say, quite early, since, I was basically in high school when I had my first experience with buying Bitcoin. But then, it's always a cosmic dance of back and forth. So, each cycle you get more interested, then you go away for a bit, stuff like that. So, yeah, I've kind of been into crypto for as far as I can remember. The only thing, I didn't have a job or anything before that. I was just playing computer games, which is also another aspect, I guess, that led me to NFTs in Neo Tokyo.
All right, well, let's do that then, because I remember we did this before, and it's hard to get a pre-crypto background when you discovered it in high school. What was give us your gaming history back from when you started to joining up and getting out of high school? What was your gaming style like?
Yeah, I'm 30 right now, and I grew up right at the precipice when, there was a shift into the digital world. So I kind of got to experience the best of both worlds. I was actually running around in the fields catching butterflies as a kid, but then I was also quite early into the whole gaming scene when it was evolving. I remember back when we had computers with their screens that were quite, large and chunky and all that. And I was into two games that I still love to this day and watch some matches or play from time to time. And they were Warcraft 3 and RuneScape. So those are those kind of defined my childhood in a way.
That's a background suitable for a Neo Tokyo citizen. So let's get into how you actually discovered crypto.
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? Then when I entered high school, I had this schoolmate that was a good dev, before it was even a thing. He actually self-taught himself all of the code and stuff. So in our interactions, because I was in a high school that was actually for a computer science, it was like this. So I didn't like it, the coding or anything. So I always hanged around with him so he could, give me tips or even wrote pieces of my code so I could pass. And the thing is, we kind of bonded and stuff. And, with high school also comes experimentation, self-discovery, stuff like that. So we were kind of heavy into drugs also, right? And sooner or later, we found out that this lifestyle can be sustainable if you just order stuff online and sell it around to people on the street. Because back then, no one knew about what the discrepancy was between the street value of any substance that you could get online and as opposed to people selling it around in quote unquote real life. So we kind of pioneered that Silk Road era. And the thing is, you could only buy stuff with Bitcoin, but it was not known back then. It was also hard. So I didn't even bother that much. I kind of deferred to him on most choices and stuff. But we did have I guess a wallet that we both controlled. And back then Bitcoin was cheap. It was 2011 and stuff. And I vividly remember having 27 Bitcoins at one time. And when we were shifting stuff back and forth, opening new accounts, and talking to these vendors, we would regularly leave some of the dust, quote unquote, on those exchanges. But that dust was like, zero point 0.2, zero point 0.3 Bitcoin, which in today's prices is kind of significant.
Ooh,
But
yes,
it wasn't worth the hustle back then of just shifting it around. So yeah, it was a different era altogether.
a different era, and you found it in high school. Very impressive. We're gonna veer away from the drug aspect getting you there, but it did get you somewhere big. So let's count that as a win.
I guess.
I'll count it as a win. I'll count it as a win. I have kids. I see that the routes that they take are not always conventional, but if it gets you somewhere, let's go with it. Now you took the Silk Road and you've done quite a bit with it. You're well known in Neo Tokyo. You lead all sorts of initiatives and Market Monday. Everyone's a fan of you. How did you find Neo Tokyo?
Yeah, so here's where the story continues, right? And what I alluded to earlier, how it was back and forth for me a bit. Because another thing I wanted to add is back then no one actually believed that crypto would be the future, right? So when the crash came, I think it was 2013, 14, the first bear market, everyone just went away. No one bothered. And to me, it was quite similar. So I didn't then enter the space until 2016, 17, when we were mining it. I remember again with some schoolmates just buying a bunch of graphics cards, and Litecoin was back then the thing to mine. And that was kind of the second cycle, but we didn't keep any of that because I was still living with my parents, and those machines were loud, and we had to sell it just to break even with electricity. It was really hard. So all the cycles that people say, oh, I'm so much years in crypto, it's come on, right? Everyone's sold, and unless you're a dead wallet and didn't just forgot about it or lost your private keys, no one held. So my real when I really got back into crypto was kind of 2020 and 2021. And it was because I know in the previous cycles, in 2017, I was buying all the shit coins I could get my hands on. It was kind of like an addiction because all the pretty colors or their logos and stuff, and all of them, most of them actually went to zero or lost 97%, right? It's just the way it is. But I did keep some ADA, and I was lucky enough to be buying BNB at $7, and then another purchase at $11. So I had 100 BNB, and I didn't check my wallets. I went away for 2 years, and then all of a sudden I saw in the news or something that they are making their own chain, because back then they were just an ERC20 on Ethereum. And I checked the price, and it was skyrocketing. It went to 250, 300, 400. And I was maybe I should log into my Binance, just check how much I had. And, to my surprise, that kind of saved me, because the previous, I guess, cycles, I never made it. So, and then after that, I saw a big number that was there. And, each cycle, there was something new. And with that BNB, I actually traded it back to ETH and got more involved in the space. So that was the real entry to all the crypto. And in that cycle, NFTs were at the forefront of it all. So, naturally, me being in gaming and in crypto, I just looked around, and I also followed Alex Becker since his Star Wars days and NoFap days, back when he was making like YouTube videos, just shitting on how bad Star Wars got. I don't think they're there anymore. But I've always liked the guy, and I've just seen that he kind of pivoted to crypto as well. And I also remember him shilling Dogepound. But I always thought those were kind of ugly. And yeah, then I followed his Twitter and all, and I saw the riddles for S1 Mint. But I always thought like, okay, I'm too dumb to do this, so I didn't even try. And oh, what a painful mistake it was. So I kind of missed the whole S1 Mint. But after that, like, I don't think anyone knew just how hyped this would get. I certainly didn't expect people making like 5-6 figures from a free mint, right? And it took everyone by surprise, but it just showed me like the power of community, of NFTs, of like having a purpose in this space. And I remember like all I wanted was to get an S1. Like I would actually start liquidating a lot of my other NFTs, a lot of altcoins, just to try and get in. And when I like started chasing it, we were already close to the upload day, when they connected all of their individual NFTs into an actual S1, started yielding bytes, and they even briefly flipped, I remember, apes for a week or two. And I was priced out at that point, so my journey was kind of painful in that regard, but I remember just wanting to get on board. So I told myself I'll do whatever it takes, to one day be inside the Citadel.
And so you are inside now. How did you finally get it?
Yeah, so after that, the NFT space kind of started crumbling altogether. We've seen the bubble burst, basically, and it is a bubble. It was a bubble, mind you. Like, a lot of people want to say that, this is how it's supposed to be, but the prices back then were so inflated that a crash was coming. It was obvious. So I actually got in as an S2, and this is also kind of an emotional or like even painful story for me. So after I missed the riddles and all of it, I said, okay, so this is my second chance. And I remember like back then it was hinted that it will be something similar, kind of like a hunt, a riddle game, all of that, a tournament. I was religiously following the tweets from Becker and Elio. And then like one day, all of a sudden, all that, like the pictures they've posted, the hype they've built up, kind of amounted to nothing. Like all of a sudden, Becker just posted a link. And everyone at first, like, I remember he announced it a day or two prior to it. And I was in a call with 4 other people just trying to, okay, so this is now going to be the real when games start, when riddles start. And we're going to figure this out and we're going to mint and it's going to be all right. And we're going to get in, right? So, but then that link was just like directly a mint page, basically. And I also remember him saying, bring bytes to burn. And I had bytes. I tell you, I had bytes. I was buying them at like $180.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
So painful.
Yeah, and I had a few bytes. I basically had a lot of bytes. Like all of my liquid net worth was in bytes. And then the most heartbreaking thing one could encounter was when clicking the button trying to mint, it's saying, yeah, you need 1 Ethereum. So that was immediately, okay. So now I gotta swap bytes to get that ETH. And I remember, stupid me, right? It was on Ledger. So that kind of introduces a few extra steps, right? You had to click a few buttons. And by the time I was loading up the transaction, it didn't execute 2 or 3 times. Obviously, the gas was insanely high back then compared to what it is now, but also like the bytes were tanking so fast because everyone was selling them for ETH or for Mint, or like were disappointed with the outcome. I don't know. I remember the price just dropping, and like I was just locked out. Like I got like 0.7 ETH out of it. So, next thing you know, I'm scraping my centralized exchanges trying to get a few more ETH to load up to Mint. And the most painful thing then happened was just Becker tweeting, and that's that. And the Mint was over. Those degens bought up the whole supply at 1 ETH. And I was like, no, because I knew the implications of this. I'm instantly down 5 figures because I knew that as soon as those NFTs hit the secondary markets, the floor is not going to be 1 ETH. No chance about it. And I think they went like, there were 3 instantly, like.
Yes.
And then they just started climbing, and I was just hopelessly watching it go up, locked out of it again, And back then there was a word that was used much more than it is now, meat bags. We kind of pivoted away from that, but at that moment, I truly felt like a meat bag. Okay, but the story has a happy ending, so. And the happy ending is that all of the NFT prices alongside it, Neo Tokyo, just started tanking over the next few weeks, months. It eventually gave me an entry at like 1.7. I even got a green cash from my S2. It was good. And then, I joined. I liked the community. I started, quote unquote, networking, which is a fancy word for saying just hanging out and, exchanging experiences, skills, and doing work for people that need you. So that's where I eventually found my home in Neo Tokyo News. And when prices sunk even lower and I got more money, I even ascended to an S1 eventually.
And I love your S1. It seems to fit you so well now. Yeah. So I'm glad you got it. Give us a rundown, because you do a lot in Neo Tokyo. Like what have you done for Neo Tokyo, and what are you doing in there now for everyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, so first of all, I was fascinated with the lore of it, right? It was like, because I'm usually into more like fantasy worlds or like this medieval stuff or like, Warcraft and RuneScape, just magic and stuff. But this cyberpunk theme was actually like very fitting for what Neo Tokyo was doing. And the lore behind it was, well done. Because it makes sense, everything is becoming more digitalized. People are moving into the computers. You can make, a living there. You can make relationships that actually mean something there. It's a vibrant ecosystem if you don't get lost into it and sucked into it, and So I kind of started writing some lore pieces. We had a channel for it. And, we were just sharing a few stories. And I remember Zihai was very active back then on the lore side. And he kind of said, yeah, dude, I like your writing. You should write more. And also they had this news team. And on one of the comments they've made was, yo, we're like looking for writers. So one day, my first article was actually when Microsoft shut down the Minecraft servers for anyone that was into NFTs. They said, we don't want any of that. And I thought it was a big hit piece of news. So I just wrote up an article and submitted it to them like, yo, do you want to publish this? And they were like, okay, it's just what we need. We're kind of short on articles this week. Let's print it. And after that, I got positive feedback from them. Yeah, so it's kind of snowballed from there. You can write for us now, right? So I'm now active on like the lore side of it. We were still making stories, and I was more and more involved in the writing scene. And then another thing, I guess you could call it natural progression, was I started doing my weekly, I guess, article. It was quite comprehensive. It was like every week it was 4 to 5 pages. It was called NFT Tuesday, where I just, I was still in touch with the NFT space in general, and just writing what I observed and saw, and people kind of like that. Like it kept them in the loop, because not everyone had the time to just go about it. So I was the one that was like keeping people in the know through that series of articles. But then also, like, they had this idea, okay, you could just give this breakdown live, on Twitter Spaces. And at first I was like, no, because English is not my native language, and I kind of struggle with, you could call it, public speaking, or like, I was very nervous every Monday when we first began. That kind of went away with, I guess, practice and all, and I do enjoy it these days very much. Like, it's a thing I actually look forward to each week, as opposed to dreading and having doubts of how I'm gonna perform and all that. So yeah, those are kind of the three core areas I was involved in, besides everything else Neo Tokyo offers. Just chatting in the channels, sharing alpha, doing some trades, exchanging information. Airdrop farming was one of the big things we were involved for the past year or so, and we're still doing lore stories with a few guys that kept in touch. We each are going to write one chapter. That's gonna be released soon, actually. Be on the lookout for that. And obviously, the news team expanded. Like, we're now doing even more work, and it's even more enjoyable for me. So I kind of found my place under the sun.
Well, I've enjoyed watching everything you've been doing over a long time now with the news team, and NFT Tuesday. Got to go back to that. I was a huge fan of those articles. Not so much because you were helping me be a savvy investor. You were helping me see that I was a bad investor, not taking the risk, because I'd read your articles, and then 2 weeks later, this random NFT you were talking about was it. It was all over CT, and I was like, oh, I heard Flower talking about that. I didn't even look into it. And it just over and over and over again, you were talking about all these random NFTs that I didn't buy. And they always were a hit a couple weeks later. So I hope a lot of people made some dough off of those articles, because they were awesome. But you guys are doing so much now. We've got the newsletter, Market Monday. You has got Vegan Digest with But Would Ya. And also there's some new like media offerings, sponsorship offerings, projects that come in and get noticed with this sort of media network. Give us a rundown on that. We don't need prices or anything, but how's the sponsorship work for projects that want to come in and sponsor the newsletter and Market Monday and all that?
Yeah, okay. So we, like you mentioned, we offer quite a lot of services now, and our following also grew, right? I remember when I joined, it was like 3 or 4K followers on Twitter. Now it's close to 20K. So, we've seen significant growth in a year or two. So we actually have, like, for anyone that wants to get onboarded as a client or sponsor, we have a quite chunky, like, pitch deck, which goes in depth to all the like services we offer. But in short, we help projects that are either in Neo Tokyo or like close to it, for the projects that are relevant to the gaming space or the NFT space and building in that sector that kind of don't have the reach that they would want to. And, they can, through us, reach a wider audiences. And we can actually put their, the article for their, like, what their project is about into the newsletter or publish it on the site. And then also they can hop on as guest speakers on either the Degen Digest, which is a video format posted on YouTube, or just voice on Twitter Spaces. So those are like the primary services we offer. There's also like obviously newsletter ads or like mentions in Twitter thread and stuff like that. But this works well, because it's engaging, especially for guests that come onto NFT Market Monday. It's usually quite a fun show where it's sort of like they give the introduction to their project, and then we open it up to a short AMA of like if anyone on the panel wants to ask more.
I've seen the deck, and it's pretty impressive what's been built over there, and probably a pretty good way for projects to get exposure to a fairly established gaming community. So I'm excited to see how that pans out over this cycle. I think it's going to do well. Let's move into like your current focus. Do you have anything going on outside of Neo Tokyo? Do you work on other projects, or are you full time?
Oh, but that's super secret, right?
Ooh.
No, in all seriousness, yeah, obviously, like I've connected with a few citizens, and the networking that's going on in like DMs and stuff. And we're actually working on a project that's, for what I can disclose right now, it's going to be a game, obviously, right? Since we are a gaming community. And we've been working on it for a year and a half already, kind of in the shadows. But now it's slowly coming out. Let's say that, and it's not gonna be anything like what's been built in the space. And we've poured a lot of like time and love into it. We're also leaning towards making it a free mint for the core community that wants to be involved. Because, we were kind of self-funded, and it's not like for profit, so to say. This is another thing, if I can go on a small tangent, that I've observed in the space. Like if I was going to make a project, right, I want to make anything in my power to not be seen as a rugger, because that's kind of like what happens even if you have the best intentions, is what I've observed. Like obviously there's people that flat out rug, and their intentions were bad from the beginning. But there's also like a lot of roadblocks you just naturally encounter on your path as a founder or a project manager. And if you don't successfully navigate them, then there's resentment from community members. And I don't want any of that negative karma, so to say. So, it's something's coming. I'll disclose more when the time is right, basically.
Very mysterious, very, very fitting with the lore of the Citadel too. I think we'll be watching to see what goes on there. And now you are a council member. You were voted in recently. Why join the council? What's your goal?
Yeah, so this is another thing I've observed from a distance, just like Neo Tokyo itself for a while. And like, first of all, I was very surprised by how much work you guys do. Like, I thought it was just a few channels, but then when you actually get in, it's like, wow, oh, these people are actually working a lot on a lot of stuff. And it's kind of daunting at first. You have to like get an overview of everything that's going on in there. And yeah, it's another thing I just observed from the sidelines and thought I would like just throw in my application and see what happens, because I do like to participate in some of the more like high level discussions, or like give my opinion on some proposals and stuff like that, and help, I guess, drive this forward. Basically, I joined because I'm committed to Neo Tokyo, right? And this is just another step where I can, implement my, I guess, time, effort, and love I have for this community to help it guide and propel forward.
The next level of commitment. I get it. It's another level. All right, let's get into kind of like what your main expertise is. Let's say there's a citizen who needs help with something, a project, whatever they're working on. Why would a citizen want to reach out to you if they're looking for advice or help on something?
I'd say NFTs still, because for the longest time I've just been so in touch with the space, because right now it's actually my job. I have to be in touch with it to provide all the content on Market Mondays. So I still do research for a lot of topics, and people actually do come to me for advice on like even founders, how would you approach this mint, or like what would you do with the tokenomics for our token. And I actually like thought at first I thought I don't have anything to offer there, but when one is like in touch with the space for so long, like my advice actually, people say is very useful for like because I'm also in touch with the flow of the space, I guess. And the meta back then was just to release a high mint price, do a 10K collection, and now the meta's kind of shifting, and people who are not that following that closely the NFT space don't know about like what the best course of action would be to make either the investors or the community happy. So I kind of help people on that front when they ask for help.
So important. It is so hard to follow the trends and the new meta and what the degens want versus what they wanted 3 months ago. It changes so fast. But I know you're
also there is a lot of like discrepancy between the team and the project founders and the community. I found that like once you get down to building and it's all development, it's all implementing new updates, I've seen founders lose touch with their community, which is kind of sad to see, because you can easily stay in touch by just hosting weekly events or asking for feedback in the channels. But that's a dynamic that's quite present in the space. They want to do something, they want to build something, but by the time they deliver, everyone either has moved on or doesn't care about it anymore. And that's how NFT projects crumble. Or like this space is so attention driven, and if you don't like stay relevant by implementing the right stuff at the right time, you're gonna get left behind.
We can stay relevant by listening to Flower on Market Monday. It's just a little insider trick there.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to a question that was reserved only for council members. We've gotten multiple answers on this one. We need one word to associate with you, Flower. Now, originally, this was sort of your trade oriented. It could be like marketing, writer, developer, whatever, one word. We've gotten everything from feisty to Just all over the place. So one word to associate with you. It's a tough one. If I had editing capabilities, we'd put in some kind of timer. Ding dong, ding dong.
I think I watched your interview with Chronicle, and he said connector or something, which I thought was, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I guess writer fits though, or you could say like NFT guy, or like go with either.
Writer or NFT guy. Okay. All right. Well, we'll hold it to a vote. We're going to have to remove the space and NFT guy, make it one word, but it might work. We can use our own judgment on that one. All right, let's go beyond Neo Tokyo, beyond tech, beyond crypto. For our final question, something we can all relate to. What are your hobbies, outside interests? What do you do when you log off?
Yeah, a lot of stuff actually. Like I kind of feel at the peak of my life, so to say. I'm kind of the happiest I've ever been, and you don't hear that from a lot of people. But I'm like really living my best life. So I touch grass a lot, which is also a rarity in, I guess, Web3 space. But yeah, I do like hike mountains, go for walks and stuff like that. But also a lot of my time is still just working, either DMing people, writing stuff, or for the project I've mentioned earlier. And other than that, just trying to basically remain in touch with myself, my body, relationships. I do meditation. I do some trading that's like more mainstream, futures and Forex, that's not related to crypto. So yeah, just trying to enjoy life, hang around with people and with nature, basically.
I love it. Flower living his best life. And we are out of time. We're going to wrap this up. This is Sarah, block editor. Today we had Flower 83 on a Meet Your Citizens episode, and we will be back next week with another citizen.